Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be diving into the new Extreme Badass collection from Tom Ford. They launched 2 new quads and 3 lipsticks. You guys know that I love testing out new makeup and especially something new from Tom Ford. Now in this video, I will be playing with and trying on the new Lava Lustre quad. This is a new formula from Tom Ford in the Extreme collection. So I have a lot to say about this new formula. I also have all 3 of the new lippies, which I will be trying them on for you later on in the video. Now I also ordered the Metal Lust quad, which is featured right up here on the screen. However, when I ordered it, it said that it wouldn't be shipping until December 17th. So I went ahead and ordered it. And then I got an email from Beautylish saying that it was actually on back order from Tom Ford and they would not be receiving it until mid-January. So they're basically asking if I wanted to cancel my order or put my order on hold. I told them just to put it on hold, and then when it comes into stock, they can go ahead and ship it. So as soon as that quad ships, I will definitely do a full video and review on that quad. So let's go ahead and get into the details on this new formula from Tom Ford. So this new Extreme Badass Eye Color quad is supposed to be a full coverage multi-chromatic eyeshadow with a unique high impact finish. Nuance and neutral tones that both offer color shifting glitter and classic powder formulas with smooth textures that melt luxurious onto the skin. These 2 shades right here are more of a topper, like a glitter topper, and they have some pickup to them. And then these are more of like a multi-chrome kind of shimmer finish. They blend and kind of move onto the skin with a very kind of multi-chromatic foiled kind of effect, but they're not super duper pigmented. They're not a multi-chrome from Pat McGrath. They're a very kind of toned down multi-chrome, but still they do kind of have that multi-dimension to them. These 2 shades right here, in my opinion, are very similar to a lot of shadows that I have in my collection, which I will definitely get into that throughout the tutorial, and then I will show you swatches of these shadows and how they look. And if you guys have been with me for a while, you will know that I have a love-hate relationship with Tom Ford quads. And for me, just on a personal level, I prefer the wet dry formula. I have tried a lot of his quads that are traditional formulas where they have a few mattes with a few sparkly shades in it. They're not my favorite, especially the new holiday palette. That was a terrible palette. It's right up here. I will link that video in the description box down below if you guys didn't see that. But I was so disappointed in that palette on so many different levels. It's already hard panned, by the way. The one palette that I have not bought that was the Extreme formula was this palette. This is the Mercurial palette. This was last year's Extreme palette. This was last year's holiday launch for the Extreme quad. And if you guys are familiar with Tom Ford, there are 3 different formulas in Tom Ford. He has the Extreme, the wet dry, and the traditional. And the wet dry, in my opinion, is the only formula for me that makes it feel like it's worth the extra splurge to buy it. It's one of my favorite formulas overall out of my entire collection. I don't know that it's fully worth the splurge because they're super expensive. I do try to keep my eye out for those sales from, different retailers, and I've been able to pick up quite a few of his quads from sales, and also the cosmetic company store. If you go into those at like factory outlet malls, you will find Tom Ford because they sell Estee Lauder, and Tom Ford is owned by Estee Lauder. And you can find a lot of quads that way. You can find a lot of Tom Ford products in the cosmetics company store. So if you live next to outlet malls or you're ever visiting a city that has an outlet mall, I suggest looking to see if you can find the cosmetic company store and go in there, check it out. You will find a lot of great Tom Ford products from them. Now, this Extreme palette, I recently picked this up from his website so that I could compare the old formula versus this new formula. What I can tell you is this formula in last year's Mercurial palette, in the Extreme formula, I didn't find a lot of differences between this and the wet dry. The only difference that I found was when you wet the Extreme formula versus the wet dry, it has a little bit more of an impact than the wet dry, but not a lot of difference. They blend out into the crease pretty much the same way. I used it the other day. I went ahead and put this on one side and then the wet dry formula on this side. And I was like, what is the difference between these two? Like, there's not a lot of differences. They're really beautiful. And this was last year's palette. I picked it up on the Tom Ford website. And I don't regret having it because I think it's such a great palette because it is that wet dry formula. And I do love his wet dry formulas. So I don't regret grabbing that. But as far as how it compares to this new Extreme formula, this is more of your celestial topper type of shades. These two in particular, they're more of a celestial. You can see the impact that it has on my eyes right now. And it kind of gives that gorgeous shine with that soft glitter without being too much. Now in the tutorial, I go ahead and apply each one of these shades on my eye and blend it out so you can see the shade and how it looks on the eye. Lots to say about this quad. Now, as far as the 3 lippies that were launched in this collection, these are the Extreme Badass Lip colors. They retail for $58. They come in Scarlet Shock, which is the color that I'm wearing right now. It is a blue-based red with metallic finish, but it's a very soft metallic finish. I wouldn't say it's too strong of a metallic. It just gives the red a little bit of a shine, which is really pretty. Then it comes in 02 Luscious, which is a deep cranberry with metallic finish. Again, it's not a super strong metallic finish. It doesn't compare to last year's. So this is the color Luscious, okay? And it's matte. It's a matte formula, but it does have a little bit of a metallic finish, but not a strong metallic finish. This is last year's. This is called Synthetica, 19 Synthetica. And this definitely has a metallic finish. So you can see, this is this year's. So it's a matte formula with a little teeny bit of that pearlescent metallic finish, but last year's is definitely way more metallic than this year's. So just for reference, in case you guys bought the ones from last year. Then we have Blush New. This is a nude with a metallic finish. And I didn't love this when I applied this. It kind of looked a little bit chalky, like right around the lip line. So it wasn't my favorite, but of course, I will definitely apply this on camera so you guys can see how it looks. It does have that ombre packaging just like the quad. So the quad has this like silver kind of fingerprint and then it goes into the white, which I do like that chromatic look here on the quad. Same goes for the lipsticks. So for example, last year's was just straight silver. This year's has that ombre effect, which I really appreciate. We're gonna go ahead and jump into the tutorial of me using this quad, and then we will get into the swatches and I will compare this quad next to other formulas that I find in my collection that are similar so you can see how they look. And in the swatches, I will compare them with and without a flash because I do feel like a flash really allows you to see not only the undertone of the color, but the sparkle inside the actual pigment itself. So when we get into swatches, be on the look for pictures that are the same. One just has a flash and one does not. And then we will get into my final thoughts. So without further ado, let's jump into the tutorial and I will see you guys all in my final thoughts. This is what it looks like. I have not touched it. The packaging is really pretty. I kind of like how it's frosted to where it's white and then it goes up to the silver. I really like the packaging on this. It's really, really pretty. It kind of reminds me of those typical celestial shades that don't really have a lot of pigment, but are more for like a topper moment. That's what they're looking like looking down on it. Now, these two shades do look very similar on camera, but I can tell you looking down on it, this is more bronzy and this is more pink. So they don't look like they have the same color. This is like a gold, and then you have the bronze, the pink, and then this is like a taupe shade. Right off the bat, it has a little bit of a chunk to it, meaning that it has some pickup with the finger. What's interesting That's the taupe. What's really interesting about this is the gold shade and the taupe shade have some pickup to it, meaning that when I pick up that shade with my finger, it has some texture to it. Let me see if I can get it to pull up. It's got some texture to it when I stick my finger in there, but these are more smooth textures, so they don't feel like they're the same. And then this one has the pickup. So it seems like this has the pickup, this has the pickup, but these two don't. I'm gonna go ahead and put each one of these on my eye. So I'm gonna start with the gold shade right here, and I'm gonna put that on the lid with my finger. That one swipe of the finger is going a really long way. Like I'm able to kind of take that one swipe and really blend it out. But this has a lot of chunk to it. So this I feel like goes a lot longer because it has a little bit of a chunk to it when you pick it up. I haven't gotten any fallout by applying that. I've maybe got a little bit of fallout right here. So I got a tiny bit of fallout, but nothing too major. I wouldn't say it's a ton of fallout. So let's move on and put on this shade right here. See what I'm saying? So I have to go back in and re-dip because this one is not as chunky as the gold shade. So this one doesn't have quite the chunk to it so that I can't spread it as far as I was able to with the gold shade. And it also can get hard panned. This is not quite the same formula. It's not quite the same texture. So this is getting a little bit hard panned, and this I don't see getting hard panned because this has that chunk to it. It like lifts with the finger. So I've had to go in a few times just to kind of make sure that it's nice and even all over the eyelid. Because this shade doesn't have a lot of pickup to it, I didn't get any fallout from applying that shade. I personally like the formula of the gold one better, in my opinion. I'm gonna dampen the Smith 253 brush. I'm gonna go into that bronzy shade and I'm gonna apply it like this. Okay, so that gave me a lot of intensity. A lot more than the finger because the brush kind of allows to pick up the product more so than the finger. The finger kind of presses the formula. So this is the first two shadows in the palette. Now I'm gonna wipe off my eyes and we're gonna do the other two shades. So let's move on to this color. I went ahead and wiped off my eyes. I'm gonna grab this color right here. And again, it doesn't have any chunk to it. It's not like the gold shadow. It's a different formula. And as you can see, when I apply it with the finger, it's a little bit too, it just doesn't have any pickup to it, like any chunk to it. So I'm actually going to take my brush and I'm gonna go into the shadow and I'm gonna dampen it. I feel like dampening the brush allows me to get a better application. And I didn't get any fallout. So let's move on to the final shade. Let's move on to this shade. And this has some chunk to it. I feel like this is going to apply like the gold shade. A little bit is going to go a really long way, and I will be able to kind of pull it all over the lid. Let's go ahead and take it with a brush and see how it applies with a brush. Because this formula is pretty similar to the gold shade, and I don't think I applied the gold shade with a brush. So I want to show you guys how this will look with a dampened brush. And I didn't get much fallout with that one either. This formula is very similar to this shade in the Fire Rose. So this is the Fire Rose palette. It was out last year, gone, discontinued really quick. This shade is very, very special and very beautiful because it has the pickup. So when you put your finger in it, you get some pickup. So let me show you guys. See if I go in with my finger, look at the pickup. So this from Tom Ford is similar to this. Let me swatch these side by side. Almost the exact same formula. Now, that's in the gold and the nude color. That's the shade in the Fire Rose. This is the shade in the Tom Ford. But it's only these two shades. These two shades are different from these two. Almost the exact same formula. It's really bonkers, but like this shade from Charlotte Tilbury this is what it looks like on my eye. And that's what I kept thinking. I was like, there's something from Charlotte Tilbury that reminds me of this. And that shade from Fire Rose. So this is the Fire Rose. This is the Fire Rose, and this is the Tom Ford. Now, if I move my hand, you can see that the Tom Ford has a little bit more of a purple undertone. The Fire Rose is a little bit more of a mauve undertone, if you will. There is also a shade in the Instant Eye palette, the Smoky Eyes Are Forever. This is her holiday palette for 2021. There is also this shade right here that's very similar to this Tom Ford. This shade right here. Now this one is a little bit more of a looser pigment. It's more finely milled, so it's not as compacted. That's the one in the Bejeweled palette. This is the Tom Ford. This is the Fire Rose. This shade is from the Huda Beauty. This is the Rose Quartz palette. It's this shade right here. That is the texture that these are giving me. So if you guys have the Rose Quartz palette and you've used or stuck your finger in this blissful shade, you're gonna know that that's kind of the same like pickup. So these two shades right here, this and this, these two shades, the gold and kind of the nude shade in the Tom Ford palette pick up like that one from the Rose Quartz. They just have a pickup to them. And then when you blend them out, they have this small, tiny little like glitter sparkle in it. Okay, so these are also similar to the ones from Patrick Ta. So this is the Patrick Ta palette. These two shades right here. So I swatched this one and then I put this one over top of it. So that is what those two shades will look like. They're very similar. The only difference is the Tom Ford has a little bit more of a base to it. It would cover the eye, I think, a little bit better than the Patrick Ta, but they're very similar. Patrick Ta palette I like, but I actually prefer this formula from Vanity Makeup. This palette right here is pretty much an identical formula also to this palette from Tom Ford. So I swatched this shade and this shade. Okay, so this is the Tom Ford, this is the Vanity Makeup. This is the Tom Ford, this is the Vanity Makeup. So that is the very similar formula. The only difference in my opinion is the shade. Okay, so now that we're done with the eyes, let's go ahead and jump into the 3 lippies that were launched with this collection. These are the 3 shades that were launched in this collection, and they do have a matte texture to them, kind of more of a matte velvet texture. So this first shade is Luscious, then we have Blush New, and then we have Scarlet Shock. Now, of course, I will include all 3 of these shades in the swatches, but let's go ahead and try them on. So I'm gonna first try on the shade Luscious, which is that kind of berry color. That is a really pretty berry color. That is a really beautiful color. And it's not a super thick formula. It's really lightweight on the lips. Like I don't feel like I have anything on my lips. Super, super pigmented, but a very thin lipstick formula. That's a really, really pretty color. So this is the shade Luscious. Okay, let's go ahead and apply the Blush New. This one you obviously need a lip liner with. Even if I had a lip liner, it's not my favorite. It's a little bit chalky, meaning see how it gathers right here? It's not my favorite. So even if I applied this with a lip liner, I don't love this color in this formula. I feel like this formula is best with darker colors, in my opinion. This is the shade Blush New. Then we have the Scarlet Shock. And this is a gorgeous red, and I'm excited to put this on. This is a really, really pretty lippy. I have a couple of reds that might be similar to this tone. So I will swatch them so you guys can see these 3 shades, and I will look through my collection and see if I can find shades that are similar to this in the swatches portion of the video. That's it for the tutorial portion of the video. Let's go ahead and jump into those swatches, and I'm going to swatch the palette and next to some of the other formulas that I mentioned in the try-on portion, and of course the lipsticks and some lipsticks that I find that are comparable to these. And then of course we will jump into my final thoughts. So I will see you guys then. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump into my final thoughts. I hope that those swatches and comparisons were helpful. I wanted to also mention this lipstick, I probably applied this 3 or 4 hours ago, and it's still on. It has lasted a really long time. It took me about 2 hours to swatch, and then I ate and folded some laundry, and now here I am, and it still looks really good. I cannot complain. And I ate dinner, so there you go. And it's very comfortable. Like I said, I don't feel like I have anything on. So while I'm talking about the lipsticks, let's go ahead and jump into it. Out of all 3 of these shades, personally, I love this one. I feel like this is the most unique. And I did swatch it next to a bunch of other reds that I have in my collection. And even though I really like the reds that I compared this to, this one is a little bit more unique because it does have that pearlescence look to it. It's not too much. It's not a full metallic like shimmer lipstick, but it has a little bit and it wears like a matte, but it has that pearl shine to it. So I actually really like this. Out of all three of them, if I was going to recommend one, this, in my opinion, is the most unique, and I do love the color of the red. Out of the three lipsticks, this is the one that I would pick. Let's go ahead and jump into the quad, and I'm going to try to like break this down. This, in my opinion, is not worth the money that they're asking for it. Yes, it is a nice formula from Tom Ford. If you're somebody that loves Tom Ford, you will love this quad, right? I think this is really pretty, and I think it's unique from Tom Ford, but I don't feel like it's unique what we already have in our collection. The texture that I forgot to mention when I was kind of pulling them all out is this. So this Glam palette from Natasha Denona, this is the new Face Glam. These two shades right here are very similar to the texture in these two shades right here. So this one and this one. So they kind of have that same pickup to them. So if you have the Natasha Denona Face Glam palette, the light or the dark, you will kind of already know how that formula works, how it looks. I don't really necessarily think they're different enough to justify the $89 splurge on this if you have the face palette from Natasha Denona. And truthfully, I would recommend the face palette over this anyway. Even if these were the exact same price, I would say get this all day. This is just, it's not unique enough, in my opinion. Here's the thing about Tom Ford. His quads are very expensive. We all know that. And I have personally fallen madly in love with the wet dry formula, which kind of allows me to justify spending $88 on his quads because I love the wet dry formula. It's just one of my kind of go-to formulas, especially when I want no fuss and I don't want a lot of fallout. I don't want a lot of mess, and I want to just have something shiny on the crease and really beautiful on the lid. Like the wet dry formula, I personally love. It's one of my favorite formulas, but it's unique for me and what I like. This formula from Tom Ford, though it is very beautiful, it's not really unique enough to justify the $89 splurge on it. We already have this formula in so many of our palettes that you probably already have in your collection. So it's not unique. It's unique for Tom Ford, but it's not unique for what's out on the market. And in order to justify it, it needs to be more unique, in my personal opinion. We have a lot of this formula in other brands. I mean, from Patrick Ta, Pat McGrath, Charlotte Tilbury, Natasha Denona, like that Vanity Makeup palette I was talking about. I mean, that palette is right around the price of this quad, and you get all of those mattes to go with it. And I feel like they are just as beautiful as this palette from Tom Ford. So I don't feel like this is worth the money at all whatsoever. Though it's pretty and it performs, it's not worth the money. I would pass on this because you probably already have this 10 times over in your collection. That's my overall thoughts. Sound out down below in the comments section. Let us know your thoughts. Have you guys picked up anything from this collection? Sound out down below in the comments section. Let us know your thoughts. Thank you so much for hanging out with me in today's video. I hope you guys all have a wonderful day, and I will see you guys all in my next video. Love you. Bye.